When there is a bright light, it tends to cast a far-reaching shadow. A little while ago, I made a poll on who would win in a fight: the Admiral of Light who follows unclear justice in the world of One Piece, Big Business Barcelino aka Kizaru, versus the darkness to Luffy's bright dawn and the most notorious pirate emperor of the modern era, Marshal D. Teach, otherwise known as Blackbeard. A classic darkness versus light video that, in my opinion, is a lot closer and more nuanced than some people make it out to be. If you like what you see, then by all means check out the other videos I have on the channel and consider subscribing for more videos in the future. If you want to help support me, channel membership is up too for just $1, where all members have the opportunity to commission for their own videos to be made. No matter what though, simply watching my videos is something I greatly appreciate, and you have my sincerest thanks. But now let's go ahead and jump into the discussion. So when it comes to versus battle discussions in One Piece, out of all the top tiers in the story, I feel like both Blackbeard and Kizaru get their fair share of downplay, whether it be from biased agenda or pure misinformation. At the time of recording this video, the latest chapter for One Piece is 1173, and we will be using all canon information available to scale these two characters. We'll kick things off talking about Blackbeard just because it isn't the first time we're discussing him in a 1v1 battle on this channel. And when it comes to Blackbeard, there is no denying his impact and power in the story. From his very first on-screen battle with Ace, he was already in those mid to high commander ranges at the minimum with just his darkness fruit. And yet, according to Shanks himself, Blackbeard was hiding his true power for decades in the shadows of Whitebeard. And after stealing Whitebeard's fruit, he gained even more power to the point he could box with old Son Goku at Marineford, despite admitting he needs to train more to fully master the fruit's abilities. Since then, Blackbeard has made arguably the most strides we've seen from any of the modern day Yonko. And yet, there are pockets of the community that don't give him his flowers, mainly due to his interactions between Old Rayleigh and Kuzan. I covered the Kuzan discussion more in my video with Blackbeard facing him, but to make a long story short, this shouldn't be counted against Teach because this occurred a year before the current timeline, where we all know based on the performance of dozens of characters in the series, a significant amount of growth can happen for many characters in a short time span. He may not have been ready to fight a Fleet Admiral level character back then, but I think it would be disingenuous to hold that over his head right now. Not only that, but just because of the nature of their powers clashing against each other, Blackbeard would have taken heavy losses with his crew for being collateral damage. And when it comes to Old Rayleigh, this discussion is really silly just due to many people choosing to follow hype moments in aura rather than just read the story. There are people who unironically think that Old Rayleigh is stronger than Blackbeard because he convinced Blackbeard to leave Amazon Lily. And yes, Blackbeard is shook seeing an old legend like Rayleigh suddenly out of the blue pull up on him, but when we read just a little bit further, Ray flat out admits he is weaker than Blackbeard and that it would have been impossible for him to beat Teach in a fight. So to any who do, stop trying to say Old Rayleigh is stronger than or on the same level as Yonko Blackbeard because not even he agrees with you. For this discussion, I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say in regards to Blackbeard. Just a reminder, we are using all canon material we currently have, so it's more than likely the pirate has a lot more under his belt than we know of, or we will get another power-up in the future. But now we can go ahead and move forward putting the spotlight on Kizaru. And when it comes to the slow-talking light man, discussing his true strength is contentious to say the least. So for this video, I'm not really going to mince my words here. Based on his actions during Egghead, SPS 110, and Kizaru's VV cards, Kizaru was not going all out on Egghead. I know some people get really upset when someone says that, and for those specific people, my response to you is this. Again, the SBSs are direct statements from Oda, and Oda himself in SBSs has questioned why readers have asked him things that are already laid out in the VV cards. Whether you like it or not, the information I'm presenting in this video is canon. It is painfully obvious that Kizaru was dragging his feet the entire time in Egghead because he didn't want to kill his best friend Vegapunk, and because he is taking part in a mission to destroy Egghead, a place he literally helped build from the ground up, which has special memories for him. Compared to his performance at Marineford, where he was able to snipe the tiny key in Luffy's hand, all of a sudden that pinpoint accuracy goes away when the target is Vegapunk from a shorter distance. At multiple points during the conflict, Kizaru had the opportunity to put Vegapunk down immediately, but did not. And this is highlighted the most with the news in SPS 110, where Oda states that Kizaru gave Monkey D. Luffy, Emperor of the Sea, his sworn enemy as an Admiral of the Navy, food to replenish his strength in order for Luffy to save his friend that he is ordered to kill. Some people to this day believe Sanji or Frankie gave Luffy the food, even though in chapter 1103, when Luffy is begging for it, Sanji and Frankie can't move due to Saturn's paralysis ability. Kuma pulls up and socks Saturn, and it's only then where he loses control and Frankie and Sanji are freed, according to Sanji himself in 1104. Kizaru gave Luffy the food. The cope against this is dead. Let it rest. And according to Kizaru's Vivi card, after he had killed Vegapunk in 1108, Kizaru was at his breaking point, and if you literally turn to the next page after he does this is when Luffy comes in and ragdolls both him and Saturn. This isn't in any way to downplay the strength of Gear 5 Luffy like some people try to make it out to be when discussing the nuances of Kizaru, but given how Kizaru was mentally distressed the entire time while fighting Luffy, being able to blitz him at multiple points and clash against him on screen is impressive, and the fact he was able to move so fast nobody could tell it was him that delivered Luffy the food speaks to just how fast he truly is, especially when he performed this feat after taking Luffy's White Star gun to the head. Even when there was a clear opening to attack Luffy during his battle when Luffy lost track of him, Kizaru chose to go and choke out Usopp instead. To what extent Kizaru was holding back is unquantifiable. I can't give you a percentage or say he was only at half strength or anything like that, but looking at the facts, it cannot be argued against that he was not going all out. For this battle against Blackbeard, just assume that we have a Kizaru that isn't going to hesitate for any reason in a fight and will be going for the kill. Now that the important context and scaling have been discussed, let's move forward with breaking down the battle. Now, when it comes to the battle between these two powerhouses, we have to go all the way back to chapter 441, the duel on Banrio Island, aka Blackbeard versus Ace. I think many of you already understand where I'm going with this. Blackbeard's explanation of his powers. To quote the man himself, "Darkness is gravity, a darkness so dense it sucks in everything, even light. Infinite gravity." In other words, Fujitora upscale. But hey, preaching the holy gospel aside, I'm sure for many people that is the long and short of it. Blackbeard can suck in light with his darkness. Kizaru is a light man, GG's. And respectfully, I have to disagree because when it comes to matchups amongst the high tier characters, not everything is going to be so cut and dry all the time. That isn't to downplay Blackbeard though, because it is definitely a significant advantage against his polar opposite in terms of abilities. His darkness powers tend to get overlooked in discussions due to the destructive capabilities of the Quake Fruit, but in a matchup like this, the Darkness Fruit is much more critical to the discussion. We have seen the Quake Fruit interact with Logia bodies before with Whitebeard and Kuzan, where Whitebeard shattered Kuzan's body after he froze the tsunami at the beginning of Marineford, just for Kuzan to take absolutely no damage. I'd imagine the result would be even worse with Kizaru. Project any of those quakes at him and he actually might not feel it at all. And it's not like he wouldn't be able to defend against it, since he and the other admirals have shown they have advanced armament hockey to nullify the effects of the Quake Fruit. Obviously, the one Whitebeard projected in that moment wasn't his strongest because he was trying to free Ace, but being able to combat against some quakes with just hockey is still good. Essentially, in a fight against Kizaru, Blackbeard would be completely screwed if he only had access to the Quake Fruit. But here's where things get more complicated, because even though on paper, Blackbeard's darkness should hard counter Kizaru's light, the extraordinary feats we've seen from the Admiral is no joke. I think due to the nature of their powers and the stats we have to work with right now, I can see the fight going in two ways. It really depends on your perspective. When breaking down Kizaru's win con, Kizaru blatantly is just the faster opponent, not really up for debate at all, considering that in order to counter Snake Man, Kaido needed to use Future Sight to get the upper hand on Luffy during their back and forth with each other. Kizaru bowling an arguably stronger and definitely in better conditioned Snake Man is no joke, considering that the main advantage and boost Blackbeard gets with his powers are hacks and destructive power, but nothing to augment his other physical attributes like speed. This is a major problem for Teach, especially when Kizaru can spawn clones that can confuse even Luffy despite having some of the best observation hockey in the series. For Kizaru, he could essentially just blitz Blackbeard to the point his stamina runs out, as Blackbeard says in his fight against Ace that his darkness absorbs all the damage anyone will throw at him, but he is clearly gassed out due to the nature of his powers, amplifying the pain of his opponent's attacks. Kizaru wouldn't even need to be there himself if his clones were capable of tagging Gear 5 Luffy in battle, and if Blackbeard is unable to react fast enough to the attacks, he will end up being punished for it. We see this against Ace with his fire spears as well as Law with his shock will. Blackbeard has abilities that can neutralize both of those attacks, but they still ended up landing on him due to his carelessness. And up against a serious Kizaru, arguably the fastest character in the verse, being blitzed over and over again to the point you can't counterattack is going to lead to the downfall of Teach, especially when you use Law versus Blackbeard as an example, since Kizaru is leagues faster than post-Wano Law. On the other hand though, in favor of Blackbeard, if you believe he's able to react at all to Kizaru, then the fight becomes much harder for the Admiral. As the man said, he could absorb everything including light. This would allow for Blackbeard to essentially tank all of Kizaru's projectile attacks, especially if he can expand his darkness outward in multiple directions. We see him be able to do this in his battle against Ace when he matched his darkness against Ace's Flame Emperor attack. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, this is all we know about the Darkness Fruit's capabilities. Blackbeard expanding his darkness in this fashion would give him a lot more coverage against Kizaru's ability to attack from any direction. With his lasers and clones neutralized, Kizaru would be left with no other choice but to attack at close range, but that will just lead to his overall downfall. Unlike his peers Kuzan and Akainu, it's unconfirmed if Kizaru has the same level of Haki as Kuzan, since we see Kuzan be able to clash and match Garp's Conqueror's Haki in their battle at Hachinosu. Akainu would upscale from this due to defeating Kuzan, but Kizaru doesn't necessarily have anything concrete to say he could match that output, at least at the time of recording anyway. So when Kizaru closes that distance, Blackbeard would be able to pull him in and shut down his Devil Fruit powers, and at that point Kizaru would get nailed by a powerful Quake Fist now that this light physiology is no longer in play. And due to its destructive power, I highly doubt Kizaru could endure this attack back to back, even though he was able to endure White Star Gun from Luffy. So the winner of this battle, in my opinion, is heavily determined on whether or not you think Blackbeard can genuinely react to a serious Kizaru. I know in stories that despite the speed gap, as long as a character is able to react to their opponent, they can still walk away the winner, and that line of thinking should be at least considered for Emperor Blackbeard. However, with his abilities as far as we know now, not augmenting his senses or speed, it is difficult to justify Blackbeard overcoming the giant difference in speed between himself and Kizaru. Using narrative as a means to justify Blackbeard winning is hard because we as the audience don't know if Blackbeard will be getting another power up and buff in the story. Blackbeard at his absolute peak of power should be stronger than Kizaru without a doubt, especially if he'll be fighting a stronger version of Gear 5 Luffy, but we simply don't know for a fact if that's Blackbeard we're seeing right now. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on who do you think walks away the winner. Also, special thanks to the GOAT Tiberius for the amazing work on the thumbnail for this video. Follow him on Twitter and reach out to him if you want your own thumbnail work done. He offers great service. And with that being said, this video is done. I hope you have a great day and please stay safe. Peace.